Hello, my name is Crystal Petry, and you are watching the third season of the Crystal Petry Podcast. On today's episode, I have a very special guest, Elena Hatzakos. She is here to talk about her diagnosis of terminal cancer. She will walk us through what her everyday life is, but also help us understand what we can do if you have family or friends that have a diagnosis of a terminal cancer disease or a terminal disease, what you can do to help and support. So, welcome to the podcast, Elena.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come on my podcast and talk about such a vulnerable and sensitive topic. I really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. The more education I could spread about it, the more grateful I am for doing so. So thank you so
Uh,
much for the opportunity.
Yes. So, my first question for you, Elena, where in the world are you?
I am currently on Long Island, New York, and originally from Russia, but on Long Island, New York.
Do you still have your Russian accent?
Depends how tired I am. So you usually it'll come out when I'm Russian. I mean, when I'm tired or a little bit on the angry side. So that's how my kids know I'm on a little bit on the angry side. So,
Yes, yes. So let's get to the topic at hand, which is such a difficult topic. And of course, it's me on the outside looking in. But when were you given your terminal cancer diagnosis?
we'll never forget it. So I was diagnosed on March 18th of 2022 at 4:45 p.m. The doctor literally waited until almost 5 p.m. when she's clocking out to call me to give me the wonderful news. So we'll never forget it. So it's been 3 years now.
And what type of cancer do you have?
I have metastatic breast cancer. So it originated in my left breast and it is now all over my spine and in my liver.
When you first received this diagnosis, the terminal diagnosis from the doctor at 4:45 p.m., what was your initial thought? What was your initial expression?
It was unbelievably numbing because it I think I just dissociated at that point because I was just, I'm at that age. Let me do my math like I can. I just turned 38 because I had my biopsy on my birthday, and I have two young kids. I was pregnant and I didn't know what my next steps were going to be. I was not educated in this yet. And it was just a very numbing situation. I had a feeling that was going to be the result of the biopsy, that it was stage 4 because I was in the hospital for a spinal fracture. And that was what the doctors were kind of hinting at, as that was what had caused the spinal fracture. And so I had a sense that was what the issue was. That's the call that I was going to get, but you can never prepare yourself for the actual call.
Absolutely not. So, before you received this diagnosis in March, did you know you had cancer even before the spinal issue? Did you know you had cancer?
I believe I had early stage breast cancer, and I went to my gynecologist 3 different occasions, and she kept telling me it was a fibroid. So she delivered both of my children, so I trusted her, and I was like, okay. But every time I felt larger to me, I would go back to her, and she was like, "You're too young for a mammogram. You know, this is a fibroid. You breastfed you did everything right. So I don't see any reason why it would be anything of concern." So you want to believe that there is no issue. So kind of the path that I went, unfortunately. I believe the person who was on my path through my deliveries and my pregnancies and everything. So, you want to believe the person that you trusted for such important milestones.
Right. Do you or did you blame her for the misdiagnosis? And
I was
really just kind of brushing off what you were thinking and what you were feeling. She kept to me anyway, just kind of brushing it off and saying, no, it's just fibroids. Don't worry about it.
I was very angry, especially since my last interaction with her was when she actually confirmed my third pregnancy with my daughter. And I already had spinal concerns. And her response was, good luck finding a physical therapist who would work with a pregnant lady. And I
Wow.
was like, okay, thank you for your support. I don't think I will be coming back anymore. Um, and it was just a lot of anger. And it took me about a year and a half into my diagnosis to finally get the courage to write her a letter, an email. And she never responded to me. And the email was just to educate her and to make sure that this doesn't happen to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And not getting a response from her of any sort was kind of like a smack in the face.
I agree.
Yeah. And what concerned me even more is that she considers herself as a researcher in breast cancer in addition to being a gynecologist. And here I am with stage 4 cancer.
Exactly.
Terminal.
Now, could you have, and I don't know if you've asked this question of your doctor or of yourself, would it have been considered terminal had the first time you went to your gynecologist and she did the research as she claims that she does, would it have been terminal, or could it have been a surgery where it could have been removed, or a different outcome would have come of that?
I absolutely think that it would have been diagnosed this early stage when I initially started going to her with my concerns. The symptoms that I was having towards the end were definitely stage 4 symptoms. And I didn't have those early on when I started going to her. So I think I would have been treated as early stage.
Okay. Do you think, and this is just the human side of me, Elena, do you think you should have sued her? And I don't know if you have, or if, you've spoken to a lawyer or spoken to family members, but do you feel like you should have sued her for that?
Believe it or not, I actually did consult with a lawyer, and unfortunately, I did so after I was finally stabilized because I had to go through surgery and all this other stuff, which I could get into later. But when I finally had the ability and the strength to go to a lawyer, it was unfortunately too late to sue for something like that. So it would have been a nice little financial nest for my children that I could have left behind for them. Because I think her straight up misdiagnosing me with a fibroid when it was in fact early stage breast cancer, I have no doubt I would have won. But I was doubting myself earlier on, because when I got the diagnosis, not only was I numb, I was a shell of myself, and I was just so broken that I didn't have any self-confidence at all.
Okay.
So, and being in the field that I'm in and working with doctors so closely for so many years, I know they have all their I's dotted and their T's squared, and I didn't think I had a chance. But looking back now, I should have taken, action earlier and sooner. But I'm not beating myself up over it, because I know I also needed time to heal in order to have had the strength to do so. Unfortunately.
You stated, Elena, that you didn't have any confidence in yourself. Was that because of your terminal cancer diagnosis, or was that something that you were dealing with before?
I think it was more of the diagnosis. I blamed myself a lot for not pushing more, for not advocating for myself as much as I should have. Because I've gone to other specialists as well, because when my spine was starting to hurt, I went to orthopedic specialists. I went to PCPs, like what's going on. And all they did was give me like steroid shots or like cortisone shots, and nothing, not even those would help me. And that should have been a red flag for the doctors, like, oh, maybe we should have done a scan or something. And nobody ever actually brought that up. And to me, I wasn't educated at that point, and I didn't know that a scan could have directed them in the right way. So
what advice would you give someone who's watching you right now, who's listening to you right now, Elena, about the importance of advocating for yourself and how to do that? Because I believe a lot of normal people, I'll use that word normal, if the doctor says this is what it is, for the most part, we believe them because they're doctors, they've had all this education. And like you said, they've crossed all their T's and dotted all their I's. At least that's what we believe and that's what we think. What advice would you give someone about advocating for themselves in the medical field with doctors?
it is so important to do so. Even right now with my current oncologist who I adore, she pretty much found me on my deathbed. I was in such bad shape when she found me. I had broken spine, innumerable mets in my liver. I was just in such bad shape. And like now I go there with so much knowledge. We go back and forth like about what my treatment plan is supposed to be. And I'm proud of that. Knowledge is power. And I think if you have any concerning symptoms and you feel that you are being brushed off by your medical provider in any possible way, go to a different provider, come up with the proof, find the evidence, do what you need to do in order to feel comfortable with the response from the doctor. There's nothing wrong with getting extra tests. There's, push for those tests, see what tests are available for the symptoms that you're experiencing, so you don't get to the point where it's too late to do so. So advocacy is so important, especially with something that could be reversed. It's not irreversible at that point.
Right. Now, you stated you received your terminal diagnosis in March of 2022 at 4:45 p.m. That's been 3 years as of us recording this podcast, or a little bit over 3 years. How long did your doctor give you when she gave you that diagnosis?
So, prognosis-wise, it all depends on how you respond to treatment. So I have a lot of my friends are actually now made up of people who are in the MBC world. And
when you say MBC?
Metastatic breast cancer. Okay. So, or stage 4 breast cancer. So, I've had individuals that I've met and became friends with that didn't make it a year. And I have a close friend that is now 14 years into her treatment. I've met people that are 22 years in their treatment that have stage 4 breast cancer. It's sometimes looked at as almost a chronic illness because of how many treatment options there are. It all depends on how you are responding to your treatment. The prognosis that I was given was 10 to 15 years. Initially, when they found me, they didn't think I would make it a year.
Wow.
It was so bad. My liver was failing. My spine, I had multiple spinal fractures. They didn't know if I would be able to walk. It was very bad.
Early on, Elena, you stated that you were pregnant when you received your diagnosis, or when you went to the gynecologist. You hadn't received the diagnosis yet. You went to your gynecologist, who brushed you off and, let you know that you were pregnant. Were you able to give birth to that baby?
So unfortunately, I lost my daughter, Mia, when she was 5 months. I was still pregnant, 5 months into my pregnancy. I had to have spinal reconstruction surgery stat. Otherwise, again, I was on my deathbed. It was really bad. They said if I wasn't going to have the surgery, that my 2 boys would be left without a mother. So I had to make the decision that I did and go through the surgery. And unfortunately, 8 hours of surgery was too much for my daughter to manage. And she wasn't viable.
Oh my goodness. This is such a difficult topic. If you need like a break, please let me know, and I will be so respective
Thank you.
of
Thank
that.
you so much.
So after the 8-hour surgery, which is I feel like that's huge just for any human body, let alone a 5-month-old baby. How did you respond? How did your body respond to such a lengthy surgery?
Believe it or not, I actually woke up twice during the surgery. Turns out that I grew a tolerance to anesthesia, and long story short, I had 4 open heart surgeries prior to getting my MBC diagnosis, my stage 4 diagnosis. So my body actually grew a tolerance to anesthesia. So I responded to the surgery actually pretty well. Emotionally, though, going into the surgery, knowing that I was probably going to lose my child, and coming out of the surgery, knowing that I had lost my child, and having to have done a procedure afterwards, was trauma upon trauma. I mean, you got the trauma that you are terminal, and then you have the trauma that you will not meet your daughter.
I know that, well, I don't know, but I'm sure that decision was a very difficult decision because you are faced with choosing between your life and being there for your sons who are already alive and the life of your daughter who, regardless to where you fall on the situation, your daughter is living and viable at 5 months. How did you come to that decision? Can you walk me through your thought process?
A lot of it was I was fighting back and forth with the doctors saying that, I could live with a broken spine. I'll go through the chemotherapy because it is possible to go through certain chemotherapies while you're pregnant. And then I will get the spinal surgery after she is born. But after multiple consultations and with very multiple different fields of doctors, it was made very clear to me that not only will I run the chance of losing my child, there was no way that I would make it through the pregnancy, that I would die prior to her birth. And I will leave my children behind without a mother.
And did you have family or friends to help you with this decision, or to just listen to you talk it out or vent it out during that time?
Oh, girl. So my social support completely changed. The word terminal has resulted in a lot of ghosting from my friends. People didn't know how to respond, and so they didn't respond at all. So I lost a lot of friends during the process, and it was a huge learning curve for me as to who is to be part of my support network. Family-wise, the only person that came to this country with me is my mother. My entire family is still in Russia. So that type of support network is very limited. I mean, even my sister lives in Russia. So I don't have that connection where I could really explain to them what is really going on. I give them updates on a regular basis, but they really don't have an understanding of what this is. So I don't get that type of support network. And even my mother, who is here with me in the States, to her, she's kind of like, well, we'll get there when we get there. We're not going to talk about the negative stuff. You're doing perfectly fine. You're class mom. You're running around with your kids right now. You're like the crazy mom that goes on all the roller coasters. You know, you're fine now. So we're not going to talk about it now. So the support network, it is limited. And then when it came to the decision of whether or not to have the surgery back then, of course, my mother was so fearful of losing her child that she was like, she was very much in the support of the doctors. She was on their side. And so was my husband. So it was me against pretty much everybody, that there was no chance of, I mean, you're not going to even live long enough to meet your daughter. So what are you doing?
Right, right. So the friends, we put that in air quotes, the friends that you had then, and I feel like a lot of people, they know someone, whether friends or family, that has a terminal diagnosis. You stated a lot of the people that were in your circle then didn't know what to say, so they didn't say anything. And eventually, the friendship just went away. What is your advice to people in that situation? Maybe they have friends, maybe they have family with a terminal diagnosis, whether that be cancer or something else. How do you talk about it? How do you bring it up? How do you interact with that person? Because I believe that most people, they don't want to talk about it and they don't want to bring it up because they don't want to make you feel sad.
Of course. I think it's very individualistic. I have friends who have stage 4 that live their life every day like they don't have it and they don't want to talk about it. And then I have friends that are like me, where they kind of immerse themselves into that world where, they educate themselves as much as possible. And I mean, with me, I went as far as becoming a licensed mentor for people who have stage 4 breast cancer. So I'm open to talking about it, but there's people who prefer not to. I think that when you're on the other side and you are lucky enough not to have the terminal illness and you have a friend who does have that, I think going back to the individualistic aspect of it, being a listening ear is very important. Allowing them to bring it up when they feel comfortable doing so, checking in on them. It doesn't have to be checking in on them and saying like, oh, how are you dealing with your cancer diagnosis and things like that. It's just in general, how are you doing? How are you dealing with things? How, is there anything that I could help with? Things like that. Checking in is really important, and not making it about yourselves. I learned the true character of some of my quote unquote friends when they made it about themselves. I'm having a really hard time dealing with your diagnosis. So, my boss gave me the day off so I could deal with it. I'm like, really? Interesting.
No.
So, these are the things that I had to deal with, to the point where literally they would call me and then the next day they would block me on their calls. So you really get to learn the character of the people that are in your friendship or in your support network group when you are dealing with a terminal illness. And I've learned that I attracted a lot of people where I was a giver by nature. And when it was my turn to be listened to or to be heard, they didn't know how to step up and do so. So they didn't bother. So and the difficult part in that aspect is that there's no closure.
Right.
So you have to be the person that is strong enough to give closure to yourself and start replacing those friendships with a healthier social network and start attracting a different type of circle into your network. And that requires a lot of self-work as well.
Mhm. And for you, what did that self-work look like, and how long do you think it took you to start attracting a different type of social network that would be that listening ear for you, that would be that support system for you?
For me, I don't know if it's me being a psychotherapist, but I kind of dove right into it. I noticed how quickly my support network was shrinking. And to me, right away, I looked into support groups of, individuals dealing with the same issues that I was dealing with or similar issues. So I became part of groups of people dealing with terminal illness, people dealing with breast cancer, late stage. For me, it's hard to deal with, you know, earlier stage because I'm their worst nightmare pretty much. So, you know, um, to me, I believed in knowledge is power. So I learned more about what I was dealing with. I found and connected with people that were dealing with the same thing that I was dealing with. And to me, that gave me a lot of encouragement. And I, even my kids to this day are like, Mom, why are you, so many of your friends also have breast cancer? And I'm like, because we understand each other. We understand a lot of what we're going through. We don't give unsolicited advice. We don't, we are, we know how to step in for each other. And that is really important to have in a support network. I, to this day, we have people come into support networks and into support groups, and they're like, I waited 2 years into my diagnosis or 3 years or something like that in order to start coming. So again, it goes back to being a very individualistic experience. I am one of those people who believe that we are all social beings, and it's so important to feed that social meter. And it's so important to feed that meter with healthy people. And it took me a while to understand that I was attracting very unhealthy individuals in my life, being a
Mhm.
psychotherapist myself and being in the role of a giver, that I needed to kind of work in therapy on becoming somebody who is willing to be heard and take time from other people to be heard and understand that that is okay, rather than being always the person who listens and the person who gives advice and things like that. So, it's a lot of self-work, a lot of self-compassion work, and then connecting with the people that are going through the same thing that you are going through. So,
Do you think, as speaking as the friend or the family member on the other side of someone with a terminal diagnosis, you said it's an individual thing as far as how you want to approach them. Should the person just ask, do you want me to ask you about your diagnosis? Do you want me to bring it up? Or should they ask, do you want to bring it up to me? Because my question is, how do you make that first step or ask that first question?
I think earlier on, it's a perfectly natural thing to, not understand how to approach the situation.
Mhm.
So asking earlier on, like, what role do you want me to take on? How can I step in and help you out now? Or if you see the person struggling in any way, you don't have to be like, oh, is it your cancer? Like, what's going on? It's okay to be in a general manner saying, how can I be of help to you? Like, how, do you need to talk about something? Is something weighing you down? Because it's not always the terminal illness. It could be something that is related to, but not exactly a terminal illness. But being a true friend, you could be the person who asks a general question of, how can I be of help to you? Like, I noticed that you're feeling down today, or I noticed that you're feeling fatigued or something. Is there any, do you need me to bring in food today? Um, do you want a listening ear? So it could be a general question rather than just, oh, is it your terminal illness, or like, did you hear bad news from the doctor or something like that? And, I have a wonderful friend who keeps tabs on when my appointments are, and she doesn't automatically go like, what was the result, or like what, something like that. She very calmly just like, how was the appointment, or, I remembered that you had something like that. The fact that they remember something like that
Yes.
is really beautiful,
Yes.
and I appreciate, and it's a friend of mine that doesn't have a terminal illness, and so I appreciate her understanding that so much. So, it could be just a general thing. Taking time to remember the small things like an appointment, or offering a ride, or offering to cook, or offering to sit with the kids while you get some rest, because there are some bad days. Despite not looking ill,
Mhm.
um, you could have bad days, and when you have those close friendships, they could pick up on that.
Early on, Elena, you stated that someone who just recently received a terminal diagnosis, that you would be their worst nightmare. What did you mean by that?
I mean, even early stage people, a lot of times when I engage with them, they don't know what stage 4 really entails. But an early stage person, which is 0 to stage 3, they don't want to become stage 4 because there's no going back.
Mhm.
0 to stage 3, there's even something called oligometastatic, where it has traveled to somewhere else in the body, but there's like only 1 or 2 spots. I believe it's up to 5 spots in the body where the tumor has traveled. That is still curative intent. You could be treated with curative intent. But a lot of stage 4, you are just in treatment forever. You are not treated with curative intent. When you're an early stager, you are treated with curative intent. There is belief that you could go back to your regular life like nothing has happened. And with stage 4, you're living it. And that is not something that an early stager would want to ever face, or anybody.
When you were first given your terminal diagnosis, you stated that you went numb. How
Yes.
long did you stay in that emotional, that mental state? And what happened, or what did you start doing to get yourself out of that state?
Sure. So I think being in the field that I'm in really helped me take the steps that I did take in order to not remain in the state that I was when I got diagnosed. So there was a lot of dissociation. There was a lot of feeling that numbness and not knowing what steps to take, and just kind of being stuck in this negativity. And I was probably in that state and this is separate from me losing my child,
Mm-hmm.
because that grieving process, that's a very long-term grieving process. And I mean, so is being diagnosed with a terminal illness. But I would say I lasted in several months in that numbing process, in that state. And then I realized, I am a social being. I need that support.
Mm-hmm.
I need to connect with people that are going through the same thing that I'm going through. I need to not feel alone, because the people around me are just giving me this toxic positivity. I'm going to die from this. There is toxic positivity is not going to help me. So I needed to be around people that would give me realistic responses, that I could, and no terminal illness looks the same. No stage 4 breast cancer looks the same. There's so many different variations. That's why it's so difficult to treat. That's why so many people have different prognoses, pardon my language, my grammar. Um, so, I would say I didn't last too long in the numb state because to me, I felt like I had children that did not need to see that.
Right.
And it was very imperative for me to kind of gain that strength and start working on myself. And again, I did mention that when I got diagnosed, I was literally on my deathbed. I had to be lifted up in order to get up out of bed. It was really bad. So I needed to know what medical steps I had to take, what psychological steps I had to take. I needed to know what social steps I had to take, and I had to take them quickly because I needed to be this strength for my children. They almost lost their mother, and I didn't want to prolong the possibility that they could be losing her sooner than later.
I have noticed, and this is completely on my part, Elena, I keep saying diagnosis. You keep saying prognosis. Is there a difference? Am I saying that, giving the title the wrong title?
No.
Okay.
I mentioned that you mentioned prognosis prior, so like I bring it up occasionally as well. Diagnosis is the actual state of having the terminal illness. Prognosis is your path through the diagnosis.
Okay. I did not know that. That makes sense. That
Yes.
makes sense. Okay.
Absolutely.
So your two boys that you have, I'm assuming that they know about your prognosis and your diagnosis, correct?
Yes, prognosis I tried not to speak too much about with them, but I'm very realistic with my children. I don't sugarcoat a lot of it. I have very bright boys. I'm not just saying that as a mother, but
Yes.
I do have bright boys. They see what they see. I mean, children are very, they see it,
Mm-hmm.
So, and they're very different in personalities. I mean, if I have a bad day, my eldest would just come up with a glass of water and be like, "Mom, drink this and go to bed." And and he's going to be turning 11 this year, so he's very mature for his age. My youngest one, he will be like, "Oh, are you going to faint? Are you okay?" Like, because he's seen me faint before, so like to him it's very traumatizing. So I have to be very mindful of how I approach it, but they still see mom as I'm class mom. I do career day. My eldest is in 5th grade. I'm raising money for his graduation and everything. So for his graduating class, I'm still very involved while I can be. And even when I can't, I push through it. So that's what they see mom as. But I am very honest with them when I'm having a bad moment, when mom needs to kind of step away and step aside and relax for a little bit. My 2 children are actually from a previous marriage. So I do have a very healthy co-parenting relationship with my ex-husband, who is very supportive with me too. And, he also steps in when I'm having a bad, like if I have a doctor's appointment or something like that, he is able to kind of swoop up the kids and, take care of them as well. He's not as transparent with them about what mom's going through. There's a lot of toxic positivity on that end as well. But, I have a different approach, as in, I try to educate them as much as possible because I know that one day, unfortunately, they will be the kids in school without a mom.
How long did it take you to tell your boys about your terminal diagnosis? What wording did you use and how did they take it?
So, they've seen mom in a very bad shape. So I had no choice but to really give them an explanation as to what's going on. So, I mean, looking back, I mean, the terminology that I used, I had a conversation with both of them about, this is what mom has. Mom is unfortunately probably going to pass from this, but we're in this together. And, you know, mom is here to also still emotionally support you. So if you see something that makes you feel really uncomfortable or you're really worried about something, I need you to bring it up so we could talk about this. I even found an oncology psychotherapist for my youngest child, for, you know, just to let him talk it out. And he uses this to talk about everything. So, you know, I'm very aware of what each one of their needs are, because they're so different, and their needs are very different as well. I mean, right now, I don't have the look of, oh, you're terminally ill.
Right. You look very beautiful, very healthy.
Thank you.
Hair is gorgeous, everything.
So, and they've seen mom with a wig too, because my first line of treatment, I'm on my third line of treatment right now. My first line of treatment, unfortunately, my hair thinned out incredibly. So they've seen mom with a wig. They've seen mom practically bald. They've seen mom, you know, look ill before. So, it to me, I think I would do a disservice if I sugarcoat a lot of everything that I go through with them. They see mom as strong and resilient, and that's what I want them to become, strong and resilient as well. So having those conversations with them is really important on my end.
Have you done, and I've seen like on TV and on social, people who have a terminal diagnosis, they start like doing video recordings and things like that for when they pass to leave to their children. Is that something that you have?
I do that.
So
okay. A lot of people do different things. I mean, I've lost friends to different type of terminal illnesses as well. They've done things as, buy a gift for every, milestone, for every birthday, for, all that. To me, I've had so many losses through this process. I think one of the most important things that I could leave my children is not only a memory of what I look like, but of what I sound like. So every month, at least once a month, I make a video for them where I'm going to put it on a flash drive, and I'm going to leave it for my ex-husband so he could share that with the children. I'm hoping that they will appreciate it more as they get older. But right now they joke about it. They'll sometimes jump into the video in the background. My oldest thinks it's ridiculous. He's like, Mom, I'm never going to forget you. But like with me, like I lost my stepdad who had raised me, and like I wished I never erased any voicemail so I could still hear his voice.
Yes.
So I have friends that I've lost through this process that, I wished I could still hear them. So to me, I think not only the visual aspect, but the, trying to leave behind something that could, engage all of their senses, that they are connected to mom, is really important to me. So actually videos is something that I started doing for my children, not I'm going to buy you a car for your 18th birthday and it's in the, I left it in, the garage and here's the key for dad's going to give it to you. No, it's not happening. But it's more of the videos are very important for me to do. And I love the fact that they jump in the background sometimes too. So they have that memory as too, like they're with the mom in the background. So my oldest loves Snapchat. So we do a lot of Snapchat videos, like, him as a banana and me in the background, like rapping away, and he's dancing as a banana as I'm rapping, like, I want those to be the memories that they have. And,
Absolutely.
and I still, um, the memories that I try to take them to as many places as possible, especially during the summer. And like, I don't hold back. The doctor's like, you're crazy. You go on every roller coaster and everything, like you bungee jump and everything, with 2 rods in your spine, like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm that crazy mom. Like I'm
And
making
you're living
memories.
life.
Yes. I
Yes,
don't hold it back.
absolutely. A couple times during this interview or this conversation, Elena, you referred to toxic positivity, which
Yeah,
I've never heard those two words put together. Can you explain to me what that means?
sure. So I'm a realist
Hmm.
by far. I like to get the information as it is and then know what my next steps are and go from there. Toxic positivity is more of like a pat on the back. It's going to be okay. We'll get there when we get there. You know, um, it's such a beautiful day. It's so bright. And all of that is great.
Hmm.
But, that's not going to save me. I'm going to need the real facts in order to
Yes.
know what's my next step and what are the side effects, so I could actually deal with that so my children don't see the bad side effects, so all of that. So toxic positivity is not what's going to save me. And so is unsolicited advice, because if I hear one more time sugar is going to feed your cancer, stop eating it, you're going to die. Or this, start eating this vegetable because tomorrow it's going to save you, no thank you. So yes, get a lot of that.
Wow. Oh my goodness. I never thought about that, but you are right. It's everywhere, don't eat this, eat this. Like, that's not what
And
it
it's so
is.
crazy because every cancer is different. So my cancer is estrogen um, based, so I have to actually avoid more of things that are like dairy, say dairy, because it has so much
Okay.
estrogen in it. So it's, everything is different. So like when I get a text message like, "Oh, happy birthday! Don't eat the cake because the sugar is going to eat the cancer."
No.
I'm like, "Thank you for the birthday wish," and wow, um, it's unbelievable the things that you hear. Cancers are so different,
Hmm.
and you have to really educate yourself before you open your mouth, and
Yes.
how you don't know how it's going to affect the person that, because not everybody also in the cancer world that has a terminal illness wants to educate themselves about it because it's so scary.
Hmm.
So it's so easy to fall for that stuff as well.
You stated that because of an 8-hour surgery to repair your spine, you lost your 5-month-old little girl, Mia. Have you dealt with that loss? Have you come to terms with it yet? I'm sure, but I could be wrong, that you're still grieving the loss of her. I feel like I would be, but what has been your steps in that grieving process?
So I mean, I'm in therapy. I it's hard to find a good therapist, but when you do, it does help.
Hmm.
um, and I do things to make sure her memory stays alive. So I mean, grief is not linear
At
in any
all?
way. So I mean, there's days where I could talk about it like today, and there's days where I will break down and I will cry about it, and it is just, it's like it's in my throat. It's so
Hmm.
hard to even like believe that I went through such a horrendous trauma of losing a child. And people don't really understand how heavy it is until and God forbid that ever happens to somebody, but until it actually happens.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still something that I'm processing, and I think I will continue to process for as long as I live. I am a boy mom, so I never had a girl, but I feel like I do, and she's just a little guardian angel that's watching over my family. My youngest one in particular, he's very sensitive and very emotional. He always wanted to be a big brother. So to him, he'll sometimes just break down and start crying. And I have to hold back and be the stronger person and be like, explain to him, like, she's just, she's watching over you, and she, you make her proud, and it's okay,
Mm-hmm.
and let him kind of grieve as well. But my own grieving process is just, doing little things to, remember her. Like, the day that her birthday is supposed to be, which is actually my husband's birthday.
Okay.
Having something sweet for her on that day. And, we have her footprint in this 3D glass holder, that we still have in our room. And just making sure her memory stays alive, and making sure the boys are aware that she's still part of our family, even though she's not present.
Mm-hmm.
Because at 5 months, we had her named, it was just, it's tough pill to swallow. And, I have my weak moments. I do have my weak moments.
How do you feel about your decision 3 years later? Do you feel like you made the right decision in choosing your life, or do you regret your decision?
It's part of my grieving process where I have days of regret, where I'm like, oh, I should have just done the chemotherapy. I should have just pushed through. They don't know what would have happened. Look, I went to a doctor and they misdiagnosed me. Like, they could have,
Yes.
led me the wrong way this time again. But risking the chance of not being here for my children, and going from having a prognosis of, you're lucky if you make it to 1 year, to let's make it past 15 years,
Mm-hmm.
is a huge difference.
Right.
So I have to keep that in mind when I do go into that spiral of, oh, I should have done this. I should have fought the doctor. I should have fought this doctor too, because it was a handful of doctors that were like, yeah, no, you're not going to survive this. And you're lucky that you'll even survive the surgery, the spinal surgery, because you have so many, the tumors were everywhere. So, and at this point, I went from having innumerable mets in my liver to just having one little dot, so it's, my prognosis has changed a great deal. So I am trying to, in those moments of grief, to not feed that thought process of
Right.
should have, would have, could have, which is so easy to do.
Absolutely. What do you wish more people knew about having a terminal illness?
My gosh, so much. Well, for one, please educate yourself before you open your mouth, because it could be so detrimental to that person, either emotionally or physically, because they might listen to you and actually go down the wrong path, or emotionally it might affect them as well. Because no terminal illness looks the same. And even in like terminal breast cancer, there's so many different variations.
Mm-hmm.
So like some of it is not estrogen based. Some of it is progesterone based. Some of it is HER2 positive based. And that's a whole other, again, you have to educate yourself before you speak up. So unsolicited advice is not always welcomed.
Mm-hmm.
Don't judge a book by its cover, because even I had a friend who is early stage, and I disclosed to her that I was trying to be, preemptively like planning for the future and getting a placard for my car for, for disability.
Okay.
And they're like, why would she take that away from somebody who is actually disabled? I'm like, I am disabled.
Wow.
I have my days, and I'm going to have worse days down the line. And just because I don't look like I am bedridden and I could barely drive my car does not mean I don't have bad days. And I might need a shorter distance to walk that day.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely don't judge a book by its cover. I have so many of my friends that have been told, why are you parking in a disabled spot when you don't look that way? Or why are you here at the center? You look perfectly fine.
What?
Being treated, or you're too young.
What?
And it's so hurtful. So like, terminal illness has so many different looks to it. And so definitely don't judge a book by its cover, and just be supportive and be open to learning about it, rather than, just saying something that could be really hurtful or not supportive.
During this journey with your terminal illness, Elena, and I almost feel really bad about asking this next question, has there been any positive or silver lining that has come out of this for you?
So absolutely. Um, 3 years in, I am a completely different person than when I was diagnosed. I was a type A individual who had 3 jobs, was the breadwinner, who was like, go, 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 go. It's okay if I just saw my kids in the evenings after my job, or, it was all about, succeeding out in the world. Right now, I work part-time. I really place so much importance on spending time with my children and my family, making those friendships, making those relationships, understanding the importance of feeding my social meter, of being there for other people who are going through what I'm going through. Because like I mentioned, I got certified as a mentor for individuals who have terminal illness. And I have more gratitude for my life and for what I've experienced, and for outliving certain things that I shouldn't have outlived.
Mhm.
Because like I mentioned before, I'd had 4 open heart surgeries prior to my diagnosis, but I still kept going and showing that I could prove myself that, I don't have any limitations and I could keep going. So now it's more of a calm and more of an appreciation for what I do have, and teaching that to my children, and being there for them and showing up for them. I wasn't class mom back then. I was the person who was in the office until God knows what hour.
Yes.
And right now I am looking for the next milestone, which is my son's graduation from elementary school, and knowing that I'm class mom for him, and that actually makes him happy. He's not embarrassed out of it. So, I'm like enjoying every second of that, and I am a completely different person than when I was 3 years ago. I've taken time to work on myself, because trauma changes you. Trauma changes the way that you think, your thought process. Trauma changes the way you respond to things. So you have to be very mindful of that.
Mhm.
So, and when you have young children, you have to be exceptionally mindful of that. So you have healthy reactions to certain things. So, and I also learned the more positive power of knowledge. So instead of consuming myself in work, I'm consuming myself into what I currently am going through and being ahead of myself a step or two to make sure that my prognosis is longer and that I continue to be an outlier.
Absolutely.
So there is
Okay.
a silver lining.
Well, I'm glad I asked that question then, because I was like going in my head, like, should I ask this question or not?
I'm
I
glad that
felt
you did.
bad.
Glad that you did. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. As we get ready to wrap up our conversation, Elena, just a couple more questions. What advice would you give to someone that is dealing with right now as they are listening to us speak with a terminal cancer diagnosis?
Um, Again, it's so individualistic.
Mhm.
So I feel bad saying this, but knowing that you're not alone in this is so important. So I think one thing is it's important to educate yourself in it. Don't rely fully on your medical team to tell you what to do. Like my oncologist and I, we banter back and forth about what my next steps are going to be because I know the medications, I know what the side effects are, I know what's going to happen. So I don't like I don't sit there and like just absorb what's going to be said to me. It's important to be a good advocate for yourself. And to be a good advocate for yourself, you have to be knowledgeable.
Mhm.
So I would say educate yourself when you can. Take the time that you need to grieve the new you, whatever that looks like. Um, Find a good support network. Don't allow that toxicity to remain in your life. Don't accept whatever support network you could get. Get rid of the toxicity, bring in the positivity. And a lot of times that is going to include people that are going through what you're going through. So, I mean, I know a lot of people waited to go into into support groups, but I jumped into it. I found groups online on like Facebook and I joined them and I read the good and the bad because I thought it was important to know the both sides of it. And people were like, "Oh, I don't want the negative stuff. It turned me off. I'm quitting it." Don't quit on it. Because it's part of what our experience is going to be. And the more that we know, the more we could take control of the negativity and, you know, bring in more of the positive aspect of it and like take control of it. So if you know what side effects are going to be, okay, well, I know that I could deal with the side effects by taking this, by talking to my doctor about this, but so again, it's going back to the knowledge, it's going back to the support network and just knowing who you could rely on. And just, I think being realistic about it really helps as well because it keeps you present and it keeps you a step ahead as well.
My final question for you, Elena, you have been living with your terminal cancer diagnosis for 3 years now, 3 years and a couple weeks, if we want to be specific. What is your intention in this space now?
I think my intention is to continue being an outlier and to show my children that you can be an outlier. I mean, when I was born, I was given 3 months to live, and I outlived that. And I'm given 15 years, and my fingers crossed and my toes crossed. My intention is to be an outlier.
Yes. And
A
my
real.
fingers and toes are crossed for you as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you for being on this podcast and being so open and honest about your terminal diagnosis. I don't know, and I'm going to be honest with you, Elena. I don't know if I would have had the strength, like if it was reversed. I don't know if I would have had the strength to come on and speak about it at all.
I think part of it all too is the education aspect of it. I love educating other people about it. And if
Yes.
I could educate just one person about it, that, it gives meaning to this horrible illness that I have. And, when I was initially diagnosed, I was really angry with God about, why would you give me something like this when I was born with something that was not healthy to begin with? Why are you giving me this additional thing? But now I see that, as horrible as this sounds, there is a reason for everything. I wouldn't have thought this when I had that period of numbness that I was going through and that anger. But the more I grew in this, the more I feel like there is a purpose behind all of this. And, I'm hoping that not only am I there to support other people, I'm hoping I'm teaching my children to be strong and resilient along the way as well. So,
And I believe you are doing that. And I believe that indirectly you're doing that with my audience as well.
thank you
So
so
we
much.
all thank you. We
Thank you for
all
the
thank you.
opportunity. Honestly, I really thank you for that.
Absolutely. You are more than welcome, Elena. And to my audience, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. You can get Elena's podcast on YouTube Podcasts and Apple Podcasts. And remember, you always have time to listen and learn on the go.